Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about the Hungarian 37M pistol and the German contract 37M pistol and just what exactly makes these pistols so good. Now before I get anybody commenting and complaining about me moving the pistol around too much, you can't see it, I'm going to put it here in this little stand. That way you can see it, it's not being moved around. Now you can't really talk about the 37M without talking about Rudolf Femaru, the sort of inventor of the 37M. Now I say sort of inventor of the 37M because of course, this was adopted in 1937. That's why it's the model of 37. But Femaru died in 36. So I think a good way of thinking about the 37M and Femaru is a bit like thinking of the high-power pistol in John Moses Browning, where they both started it. It's both from their lineage, but they weren't exactly alive to see the pistol become kind of what it was destined to become. Browning passed away before the P35, the high power, and then similar thing with this. So Femaru died in 1936. Before it was adopted, there's a little bit of controversy on exactly how much effort he put into this gun. He was retired probably before they started working on this gun. So how much he did with it's debatable. Now, what he did work on is the 29M, the Hungarian 29M. I did a video on this already if you want to see the video. But this is definitely something Femaru worked on. And you can see the resemblance. I mean, pretty much the 37M is a simplified 29M. Now, comparing Femaru and Browning isn't like the perfect comparison because Femaru kind of borrowed a lot of designs from Browning into this pistol. I mean, you can see just kind of looking at it, the kind of contour of the dust cover on the slide and everything. This is very 1911 looking. It borrows pretty heavily from his earlier blowback designs like the 1903. Femaru really took really heavy inspiration from Browning's designs into the 37M. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so good. He kind of took all the best parts that he thought, from the Browning design and put it into his pistol. This is really a long time coming. This pistol from Femaru, and it's really good. It's a definite, really big improvement over the 29M. So of course, Hungary, they adopted the 29M in 1929. The production of this went up to about 50,000, and when they switched over to 37M. They just kind of carried over the same serial number. So these start around 50,000. These go up to about 50,000. Now this is the 37M of 1937, and we all know it's right around the corner from 1937. And the important context of with the Germans and the Axis, powers in World War II is it's often really overlooked that how Hungary was part of the Axis nations. They were an Axis member. They were allies with Germany. So really, the best way to look at Hungary isn't like a subjugated nation. They weren't really like conquered and occupied, that sort of thing. They were an ally pretty early on. And so therefore, these guns weren't, the production of these guns weren't messed with or weren't completely taken over like some of the other occupation guns from, say, like Czechoslovakia or Belgium or France, stuff like that. So when the Germans want to, the Germans obviously have a shortage of all arms. They definitely have a really big shortage of pistols going on. So when the Germans are looking for where they can source pistols from, indeed they look at Hungary and they see this really good design and they want it. And this is when the German contract 37Ms or the P-Mod 37s come into play here. Go ahead and stick it here. The German contract 37Ms, they come in two different batches. So there's the first contract of 1941. So some pistols you'll see a JHV 41, and some you'll see a JHV 43. This is a 43. But they ordered 50,000 in 1941, and then they ordered another 35,000 in 1943. This is part of the second contract. I've heard people say that the first ones are going to be a little bit nicer. I think that kind of holds true with this one. This isn't quite as nicely refined as the Hungarian 37M as far as just overall polishing and bluing finish, but it's still really nice. So the first contract was in 41. That contract wasn't really finished until, most likely wasn't finished until like 40, 42 or maybe later. So then you have the 43 contract, and that 43 contract was actually finished in March of 1944. So just because it's a 43 marked pistol doesn't mean it was made in 43. It could be a 1944 made, early 44 made pistol. Now about 185,000 37M pistols were made up until 1944. I believe that's counting German and Hungarian. But so there's quite a bit of them. They're not a super uncommon pistol. You can find them fairly regularly out there. Of course, like everything produced during World War II, German examples go for the most money. The Hungarian ones are quite a bit less than the German ones, especially like a German pistol with a rig and stuff is going to be a lot more. Now, the barrel length on the 37M is 110 millimeters, which is 4.3 inches. It's pretty nice. I mean, that's comparable to a lot of like modern concealed carry pieces. The weight is 770 grams, which is 27.2 ounces. So, not too bad. It's under 2 pounds. It's not like a super lightweight carry like we're used to today, but it's not bad. It's not overly heavy. So the weight helps kind of tame the recoil a little bit, especially on a direct blowback pistol like this. Now, probably the biggest detriment of the 37M, which is it's kind of unfortunate because overall I think the gun is just so good, is the sights. The sights are just pretty terrible. They're really hard to fish out. They're pretty small. It's just very unfortunate how bad the sights are on this pistol. I feel like it's a little bit more just like a point shooter maybe, especially with a 32 gun or something. This is probably a bad breath distance sort of pistol. So the sights, it is what it is. I'm sure they're accurate enough on a bright sunny day when you have plenty of time to find the sights and aim and shoot. But it's a little bit more like a point shooter, which isn't really great. Now let's get in and do some close-ups, and I'll show you some of the differences between the 37M and the 29M, and then some of the differences between the Hungarian and the German 37Ms. Now here's the 29M, the Hungarian 37M, and the German 37M. Now the writing's been highlighted on these. I highlighted the writing on this. These two were done before I got the pistols, but this does kind of help you see the markings on camera a good bit. Now the 29M is kind of defined by this large, rear section here on the slide. This is a separate piece. If you want to disassemble it, you have to push something in this little button and it rotates off and comes out. I disassembled this on the 29 video if you want to see the way it goes, but it's pretty complicated. It's not the best design. The breech face part is not connected to the slide or the frame. It's kind of weird. Now the 37M here is greatly simplified. You don't have that separate rear section. Instead, you just kind of have this traditional, slide, this one-piece slide. It's really nice. Now to disassemble this, it's pretty easy. You notice there's two little cutouts here in the slide. Now one of those is for when you fired your last round in the magazine and the slide is locked back. Now the other notch is for disassembly, and if you have an empty magazine in it, it makes it pretty easy. What you do is just slowly pull back the slide until the slide release here is caught in the first notch. And once that's in there, you just rotate this barrel and it comes right out. I mean, this is just a very, very easy takedown. I mean, that's reinserting the barrel. This is just a greatly simplified takedown method. Now, to take it the rest of the way, we'll just press the button here and release the slide. And that's pretty much it. Just the slide barrel. And now, again, compare this to the 29M. This is super simple and super fast. Now, there is no manual safety on the Hungarian 37Ms. There's no manual safety on the 29Ms. There is only a grip safety. I would say the grip safety, I think it works a little bit better than, say, the grip safety on like a Browning design like the 1911. Because this pivots from the bottom instead of from the top, and so it's a lot easier for the web of your hand to sort of deactivate that safety. Now when the Germans ordered their pistols, they definitely wanted a slide safety on their pistols, so that's one of the biggest differences between the German and the Hungarian ones. Really, I much prefer having a safety on here, especially for a single action only gun. If you're going to be carrying this thing, cocked and locked, it's nice, to have this safety instead of just relying on a grip safety that may or may not become, accidentally disengaged or whatever. With the safety, again, this is a very, single action 1911-ish kind of carry feel to it. Now this is, only 32 ACP. The Germans, they wanted all their smaller pistols to be in 32. The way to think about like why the Germans had so many 32s is that these smaller 32 pistols were kind of given to like officers and pilots and tankers and stuff like that. People that didn't necessarily need a really large pistol, and in fact, maybe they didn't want to have like a large P38 or something like that on them that just took up a lot of space. If they're an officer, they don't want the extra weight and stuff on them. If they're a tanker or a pilot, they don't want that bulky pistol taking up, a lot of space in their cockpit or in their tank. So a nice, compact 32 pistol is kind of fits that role, really well. Again, they're probably an officer or something, and they're not going to really be shooting this in combat. They don't need a lot of stopping power and stuff like that. So 32 works out for them. And in fact, most of these little kind of small, compact pistols are going to be in 32 for the Germans. Now the slide markings on the Hungarian 37Ms is going to be pretty much identical to the slide markings on the later 29Ms. The slide markings on 29Ms changed, but it'll all kind of say this, Femaru, FEG, and then the model number. This is pretty standard markings for the Hungarians. Down here in the trigger guard, you'll have either one of a couple different types of stamps. There's a type of stamp for that the Hungarian military added to theirs. This one is a St. Stephen's crown. This crown is it's thought to be like commercial sales, stuff like that. So if you see a little crown like this, the gun was probably sold commercially to police or whoever, or maybe even, officer private purchase, something like that. Now in German arms, they really didn't want there to be, written on the side of it where the gun was made, so that the plant can get bombed or something like that. They wanted to keep that secret, so instead they would use these codes. Now for FEG at this time, it's JHV. These codes would change every couple years, to keep these plants secret. But JHV is on these German 37Ms, and you'll see a 41 or a 43 underneath that, depending on which contract. JHV, interestingly enough, you also see it on the G98 40s that the Hungarians made on contract for the Germans as well. So you'll see that on these pistols and the rifles. So PMOD 37, caliber 7.65, to note that this isn't 380, it's in 32. Of course, this is pistol model 37. Also, you see this PMOD 37 on the magazines instead. So here, this is an actual German 32 magazine, so it's marked, PMOD 37, whereas on the Hungarian 37M magazines, it'll just say 37M. Now here on the trigger guard, if it's a German pistol, you'll see a Waffenamp. This is Waffenamp 173 for the FEG factory at this time. This is only this real one Waffenamp on the guns. You'll see a couple other little proofs. So you'll see a proof on the slide, and here on the barrel you got a little eagle for the proof mark, and then the serial number. The Germans serial numbered their barrels. The Hungarians did not proof or serial their barrels, and the Hungarians, most of the 37Ms I've seen are in the white like this, where the German ones are going to be blued. Now let's try to take a look at the sights and the sight picture on this 37M. It is kind of lacking. Let's see if I can get this lined up for the camera here. This is harder than it looks. So that's pretty much it, except maybe you'd be focusing on the front sight or beyond. But it's really tiny. I mean, this is really hard for me to do. It's also hard just when you have the pistol in hand and you're trying to aim. I mean, this rear sight is just tiny. And the 29M wasn't quite so bad. I don't know, maybe it is. But I mean, I just don't know, why they set with these, sights. The front sight is it's dovetailed, so I guess you could adjust, for windage on it if it was shooting off. But the rear sight is just kind of built into the slide. There's no way around these sights. Now let's talk a little bit about holsters. This is a Hungarian holster for the 37M, and this is a German Luftwaffe holster. Now this is pretty haggard. I mean, this is real rough. The muzzle's kind of poking through. But this style of holster, and there's a few different style of holsters, of course, for this one. This holds 2 separate spare magazines, and of course it just fits the pistol, real nicely. Now the German holsters, these varied quite a bit. This sort of Luftwaffe drop holster design, this is very similar to like the FN 1922 design, except the 1922 it had the magazine on the front instead of on the side. Having the magazine on the side here was sort of it was a space-saving measure. With the magazine out, it just adds a little bit extra bulk. Forward, I guess you just kind of have a little extra bulk out, which they sort of opted for. Now these Luftwaffe holsters, you'll see a couple different markings on it. This one has a Luftwaffe acceptance stamp, the code for who made it, and 43. This holster is in really, really good shape. This is an original holster. I mean, it's pretty common to find these Luftwaffe holsters like this in really good shape. These a lot of times these didn't go through a ton of frontline usage. So it's just held on with that stud. It's got a nice little hinged flap here to get that out of the way. And inside of the holster you'll see these markings. Of course, this is just saying that this is for the pistol 37M and this caliber. Pretty standard. The 1922 holster has a pretty similar markings on it. The gun fits in here nice and snug. The extra magazine, of course, just fits on top. It's an interesting design. It's definitely not like a fast draw or anything like that, but with this top flap, it does kind of keep the pistol, sealed up mostly from dirt and debris. Keeps most stuff off of it, and it's not terrible. It's a nice, drop holster, so the holster fits on you just a little bit lower than your belt, which I think was something that a lot of pilots maybe preferred or officers preferred. Because you see this on the Luftwaffe holsters. Let me know what you think about this pistol stand thing. If you want me to just go back to holding them, or if you really like this, let me know, and I'll keep doing this in the future for pistol videos. It's your feedback that lets me know what I should change or whatever. So always comment and let me know what you think. I read all the comments. I'm not just saying that. So appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.